Hello crafty viewers, for today's video I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful Christmas card using the Merriest Moments bundle out of the August to December mini catalog. And if you stick around to the end, I will share with you two other cards also using the Merriest Moments bundle. So sit back and watch how it's done. And as always, if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be able to help you with your crafting needs. There will be a link to my online store down in the show notes below. So sit back and see how I put this card together. For today's presentation, I'm going to be showing you some cards that are going to be made out of a product that's in the new mini catalog that goes from August through December. And this video is going to be featuring cards made using the Merriest Moments bundle. Now this is a very interesting, unique bundle, and it's very similar to the bundle that is in the annual catalog called Art in Bloom, in that it is a hybrid of an embossing folder and dies that go together. So let me show you what that means. Here is the bundle and the stamp set and die set. So it does come with photopolymer stamps. There are a variety of different sentiments in there, and you'll see me using those when I make the cards and show the cards that I've made. It also comes with this unique embossing folder. Now, what's special about this embossing folder is it solves one of the problems that you have when you try to use an embossing folder that pairs with dies. And let me show you what that means. So sometimes when you're cutting things out using a die and then there's a matching embossing folder that goes with it, it's really hard to get it to align, to have the embossed parts align with the die cut parts. And sometimes they just shift a little bit and they're off and you have to redo it. So this is a really cool embossing folder in that there are two different dies that align with the pattern on the embossing folder. So this is the outline die. And you can see that when you line it up, it actually is designed to just fit right in the edges on the embossing folder. So it just kind of clicks in place, and you can put your piece of cardstock in and then run it through. And not only does it cut out the shape, but at the same time and in the same pass, it also embosses it. So for example, I have this piece here that was cut in and embossed in one pass. So I put the paper in and you can see that it fits perfectly in here. And if you take a close look, you can see that there is an even edge all around. That's pretty cool. And it saves time because you don't have to go back and redo stuff, because it just slipped a little bit when it was in the embossing folder. So I thought this was a brilliant, brilliant idea. There is a second die that creates a die cut that has more detail to it. So this die here will create a die cut that has all of the edges cut out. So you can see on this piece that there is no gap in between. And so when you line this up, there are going to be areas in here that are going to be cut out. So some of this in here, and this one, I did try to run it through in one pass and it didn't work. So this one you do have to run through as two separate passes, and I'll be showing you how that works in just a minute as we sit down to make our card. Now, included in this bundle are also some very cute poinsettia flowers, some holly leaves, some different greenery sprigs, berries, and some sparkles. And that's in the stamp set. There are also corresponding dies that go with those. And here I have them on some magnetic sheets that I purchased so I can keep track of all of my dies. Now you can either cut them out or stamp and cut them out depending on the look that you're going for on your card. You'll also notice that I have a little printout here, and this actually came from the Stampin' Up! Online store, and I just saved a copy of the picture of the dies and printed it out. And that way I can always keep track of exactly what dies go with this set, because there are a couple die sets where they have various different leaves and sprigs and stuff, and sometimes it is hard to remember what goes with what. So if you were wondering where I got that from, it did come from the website. So let's get started with our first card. For this card, I'm going to be taking a piece of basic white paper, and it's cut to 5.5 by 8.5. I did score it at 4 1/4. And let's make this into a 10th fold card. This will be a portrait, or sorry, a landscape card. I also have a piece of Blackberry Bliss paper, and we can start by simply adhering this down. This is also cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5, so there won't be any edges showing up once we adhere this. All right, now here is a piece of gold foil paper. I did cut this to 4 by 5.5 inches. This is a fairly large die, and it does take up a good amount of space on the card front, so you do need almost a full-size sheet. But because the gold foil paper is 12 by 12, I do like to try to get 3 strips out of it, so you can get away with only 4 inches wide. It's gonna look like it's not gonna fit, but it will. Trust me on that one. So I'm gonna run this through my die cutting machine, and I will be right back. Now you do need to carefully weed out the excess here all around. And some of these are kind of delicate, so be careful as you're pulling your die cut apart. And it does help if you have a pokey tool to poke out all the extra little pieces that may have stayed behind. There aren't a whole lot, just a handful of them. Okay, so we'll set this aside. And already you can see the difference between this piece that was cut with the outline die and the extra detail that you get when you use the detailed die. So now I'm going to align this in the embossing folder. And the easiest way to see which way to do it is look for this, and that sits right in here. And this will fit real nice in the indentations here. So just fold it together, check and make sure that it is aligned and centered. And I am going to run this also through my die cutting machine, and I'll be right back. Okay, it's time for the big reveal. Look at that beautiful detail. Isn't that pretty? All right, let's set this aside. And to start, I am going to go to the next step, which is our sentiment. Now, I cut a piece out of a scrap of Blackberry Bliss. So there is a rectangular die that is in the die set that is sized perfectly to fit on the interior of this rectangle. And I just used a piece of Blackberry Bliss paper and cut that out. Now, I also took a couple of pieces of basic white paper and kind of played around to see which piece I wanted to use. So I have the Blackberry Bliss that will go in the middle here. And I want you in the comments below this video to let me know which one do you like better. I started off with the sentiment in Blackberry Bliss ink. And I also did it in some Versamark ink with gold embossing powder, just to see what that would look like. So you tell me which one's your favorite. For this card, I am going to go with the sentiment that is stamped in the Blackberry Bliss. So let's start putting our card together. The sentiment is from the Merriest Moments stamp set, and it's this "A Joyful Christmas to You and Yours" stamped in Blackberry Bliss. I am going to start off by adhering the sentiment onto the Blackberry Bliss liner. And one trick that I use to figure out how much margin I should leave on each side is I take my piece, once I have tape on it, right before I adhere it down, and I just turn it over and do a visual check to see how much space I need on each side. And that goes a long ways towards making sure that I have even edges. Now this little piece is cut to 1 3/4 inches by 2 1/2 inches. And that means that this is 2 by 2 3/4 when you cut out the rectangle using the die. And I don't know if you can see it, but it does have this really pretty stitching on the edges. The next thing I'm going to do is take some Stampin' Dimensionals, and I am going to put 4 of those on the back, and we're going to raise this up. And again, I'll hold on to it, and I'm going to line it up in the middle just to see where my edges are. And that gives me a good approximation of where I want to set this down. There we go. It's always easier to put the sentiment down first, and then I'm going to put dimensionals on the back. And it's just a little bit easier to adhere this down onto the card front once you do that. So as I mentioned earlier, this die cut takes up pretty much most of the entire card front. So make sure you know where your fold is before you plop this down. And see, we have a little bit of space at the top and bottom, and not a whole lot of space from side to side. I did measure it, and there is this ridge, and it leaves about 1 inch on the top and bottom. And another good measure is it's about 1/4 inch along this bottom edge if you choose to have the larger of the holly leaves up at the top. So it's about 1/4 inch at the bottom, kind of give you a little bit of a gauge. And there is our first card. Look at all of that dimension, and look at that beautiful embossing. But look how fast and easy that was. As I promised at the beginning of the video, I'm going to show you 2 other cards that I made using the Merriest Moments bundle. This card is using this beautiful paper that is out of the Tidings of Christmas Designer Series paper set that was in the annual catalog. The background here is made out of evening evergreen, and as you can see, it was also die cut and textured, embossed with that beautiful texture. It is set off with some cherry cobbler background and stamped in cherry cobbler ink. Now most of the cards that you see using this die cut are going to be horizontal, but I thought I would change it up a little and make a vertical card. So this card also is cut using that detailed die cut and run through the embossing folder. I backed it with some paper also from the Tidings of Christmas Designer Series paper that's in the annual catalog, stamped it in evening evergreen, and tied it with this gorgeous, gorgeous ribbon, also from the annual catalog. It's an evening evergreen. I added 3 little red rhinestones on this one, just to add a little bit of sparkle. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and want to see more, click on the subscribe button down below here, and I would love to have you visit my website, and you can find that down in the show notes below. Thank you. Have a fabulous rest of your day.